Three Grots in a Vox is intended for a mature audience. This means there will be crude language and discussions of adult themes, especially if we're talking about Tactical Marines or Gabriel Seth. Viewer discretion is not only advised but encouraged. All opinions are our own and often given for humorous purposes. Any advice is given largely for entertainment purposes and would probably be ignored. But if you do learn something useful, count it as a...
Why, GW? What did we do to you? So this episode was due to go out on the day of the autumn 2023 balanced data slate. But they released a data slate instead, so we couldn't release. Now, we've discussed it between the three of us and we've been over the video. Now, most of the things we say, in fact, all of the things we say are still absolutely relevant, but there are some small changes. The points have changed and the unit sizes in particular have changed. Now, we've decided to upload the video anyway with the addition of this little bit at the beginning and a longer bit that we're going to put on the end where I just update to where we are now. We've got our normal 3 army lists towards the end. John and Mark's lists have actually gone down in points. My list, not so much. Mine's gone up a fair chunk. But the concept is still exactly the same and I wouldn't change anything. So I hope you enjoy the video and join us for the extra little bit on the end of the army lists.
Not getting started with and beating Custodes, because John still doesn't like getting started with. Have you come up with a way to rephrase that, or are we just going to run the joke of not getting started with into the ground a little bit further?
We're good at running jokes into the ground, so
yeah,
why don't we?
That's true. So on that note, is the video actually recording your voice today? How sure are you? Yeah,
99% sure.
Have you done any sound check in that?
Yeah, I think we're
Are
good
you
to go.
actually recording?
No, I've been recording for a while. Yes.
Excellent. Cool. So this is a Tony video. This is a pre-recorded Tony video, which we haven't had in a while because Tony's been busy with life-related bollocks, which is
apparently having children and changing careers or jobs and stuff like that eats up a lot of your spare time.
Yeah.
Right, important stuff first. I've got a beer.
Okay.
This is I'm going to read this to you. It's called Goose Willis.
Goose Willis.
It's a gooseberry full sour.
Okay.
And listen to this. This is spectacular on the back here, if I can get the light right.
All right.
Yippee-ki-yay, mother plucker. Get this gooseberry full sour made with Nelson Swavin hops in your chops. There you
go. You reminded me of there's a video game been out a few years now called The Untitled Goose Game, which is
I love it.
Legendary. It's fun.
Oh, absolutely.
There's rumours of a sequel, and the sequel is going to be called Untitled Cat Game.
Oh, this smells delicious, but I bet it tastes awful. Let's find out.
I mean, the word sour in the title wasn't exactly...
Ooh.
That's what I was expecting in terms of reaction. It's what I was hoping for, to be fair.
Very sour, very hoppy. I like it. Very refreshing. It's a good summer beer to finish the summer with. Let's talk about Custodians.
I went away over the weekend and I found a beer I quite liked. So I'm going to see if I can find it. Yeah.
You don't drink beer very often, Mark. That's quite...
Yeah, you're right. I'm trying to drink it more and more because it's like the social thing to do and it's refreshing and all that.
So everybody else is trying to back on the drinking and Mark's like, no, that's not right. Let's do it the other way.
Whatever. Fuck it. Who cares?
Right. Okay.
I was going to say, I was at a Brewdog bar and apparently it is now £5.60 for an alcohol-free beer.
Yes.
Oh, I've something else I saw on social media was hipsters go around all these various like artisanal breweries and so on, trying all the random beers that they've taken and tagging them and logging them on apps. So hipsters trying beer is like Pokemon Go, but for hipsters.
Yeah, I can see that. I'd enjoy that, actually. I'm not a hipster, but that does sound like a fun day.
Collect them all, tick them all off. Got to catch them all. Yeah, okay.
Right, let's talk about Custodians.
All right.
So, I like Custodians. I've played Custodians since there's been Custodians, really.
Why do you like Custodians?
Because you only have to pay 3 models.
Well, actually, do you know, genuinely, that's why I picked them up. It's exactly what John just said. When I'd sort of got out of 40k, I'd sold a lot of my stuff. I couldn't find a lot of stuff, but I suddenly got that sort of like itch. I really wanted to play a game, and it was like, what's the fastest army that I can build and play? That's Custodians.
Makes sense. Or either Custodians or Knights. Yeah, yeah.
It was either Custodians or Knights, and I thought, bugger it, I'm going to buy some Custodians, and that's literally it. I bought them because they were the smallest army that I could legitimately put together and field.
Okay.
And for someone who's time poor as I am, that was massively important.
And as like loyalists beyond reproach, goody good guys of the setting, they're pretty close to it, to be fair.
And they're pretty cool as well. They've got some great fluff. You know, I'm really old school, and the idea of the Custodian Guard all the way from the beginning, and suddenly that you could use them, that was awesome.
Yeah.
So I really got quite excited about them when they come out, and I've played them. I played them all the way through 8th. I played them all the way through 9th, and I've played them in 10th.
I love the idea that there suddenly became an army playable in 40k because Guilliman turned up, rocked up to the Imperial Palace, had a chat with the Emperor, and then said to them all, "What are you all fucking hanging around here for? Get out there and do some fucking good around the galaxy."
Well, they sort of come out at the end of 7th, and that's sort of. I did get the big box set with them in. But they didn't really work in 7th. They properly came out in 8th. And they're cool. They've got great fluff. They've got cool models.
And this guy front, I was going to say, this guy front and center literally has a bolter stuck to a staff weapon. So that's cool as well.
Yeah.
And I should have put the picture of the naked Custodian. I need to find that.
The only thing I dislike about the Custodians out of all of the stuff is their really weird banana too tall helmets are a bit strange.
It's funny with elves, that always annoyed me. It's why I never liked high elves.
They look too much like elven helmets in that regard. It's like, couldn't they have come up with a slightly different look?
Well, that really upset me with elves, but actually doesn't bother me with these. And I think it's because the elves being so slim themselves, it sort of exaggerates that very tall profile.
Okay.
Whereas these guys are all bulked out anyway, so it's not quite such a...
For me, it's otherwise. For the elves, it was a bit weird at first, but they'll get over it fairly quickly. And the Custodians, like, you're muscling in on their territory. Yeah. Anyway,
right. Let's talk about these. So we're not getting started because John doesn't like getting started with things.
Yeah, we're not allowed to call things getting started with videos anymore.
We're not allowed to call them getting started with videos
anymore. They don't do well in like search terms or something. So,
and because you know I'm all about economy, I thought I'd just repurpose the old PowerPoint. So I just put not at the beginning. I thought we'd just go with it. So. Here's the old setting started strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
From last year. Actually, no. This is all out the window.
Oh, okay.
I was hoping
they're a little bit less complicated now. One would hope.
They are less complicated, and let's get into that. So, rather than my old strengths and weaknesses, we now have an all new slide.
Yep.
What's hot and what's shit.
All right. Okay. Cool.
So we'll start with things that are hot
to compare with what's in our little starting lists at the end of the video.
It is actually. It's very interesting. I just had a quick look when I put them in. So things that are hot. Now these are very, very tough guys. When they were redone from 9th, it was someone who wanted to make them decided, do you know what? I want Death Guard, but gold.
Yep.
Everything's got massively high stats. They're all very, very tough.
They're all like 2 up, 4 up, 4 plus.
Pretty not everything, but the majority of anything gold. Is 2 up.
Oh yeah, except for the Sisters of Silence or whatever.
Is 2 up armor and 4 up invuln. There's a couple of exceptions to that which we'll come to, but certainly the majority 2 up armor and 4 up invuln. They're very good in melee. Especially against infantry. Now, to be more specific, in the fluff and in the game, they are Space Marine killers.
Yeah.
Their whole shtick is they are designed to be the ultimate Space Marine killers. So before anybody gets any further, if you charge them with your Blood Angels, you're going to lose. It doesn't matter how many buffs you're putting in there. It doesn't matter that you've got golden shiny guys. It doesn't matter that you've got fancy chainsaw, all these things. No. If you charge the things that are designed to kill Space Marines in combat, you're going to get stabbed. And
does that go for something like World Eaters as well?
Doesn't matter. Yeah, they'll stab them too.
Okay.
The whole army is
That must
built
be a
around
really
the idea
shit game
of
for World Eaters then. Bloody hell.
stabbing
That's all they can
things
do.
or
Wow.
stabbing Space Marines in melee. Everything's built around that.
Okay.
Every weapon is optimized to kill Space Marines.
So step one, if you want to beat these guys, shoot the fuck out of them.
Yeah, or don't be Space Marines. That's not entirely true. If you follow Mark's advice there, shoot the fuck out of them. As we filmed this, John played a game yesterday against Tyranids, and he bought a bit of a parking lot with a load of tanks. That army would absolutely massacre these guys.
Yep.
Because whilst they can stab the Space Marines, they can do shit all to the tanks.
Yeah, that was a weakness that I spotted when trying to write my starting list as well.
They've got some powerful characters. All of their characters are pretty usable, apart from maybe the Knight Centura. We'll get to her later. They're all very good buffing points as well, which I quite like. And they're all pretty good in melee as well, even better than your standard guys. The Custodian Guard, which is your standard golden shiny boy, is arguably, probably undercosted. And when your basic troops choice is good and undercosted, that's a massive, massive bonus point. Mm-hmm. You've got some solid strats. You haven't got many strats. Nobody's got many strats, but pretty much all of them are good. And uniquely amongst armies these days, they can take some odd-sized units. Not all of their things can be odd, but some of them can be odd. You can have units of 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 or 7, and it actually makes a difference. Which is actually quite useful when you're army building. It's still not easy to hit the 2000 or whatever on the nose, but it's a lot easier than it would be otherwise. So let's talk about what's not. You got relatively no numbers. However you swing this, unless you go Horde, Sisters of Silence, and there's no reason to do that, you're not going to have many models.
That doesn't necessarily have to mean low numbers of units, but it definitely means low numbers of models.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They can take some very small units, which is quite handy. You've got a big lack of shooting options.
This is what I noticed.
For a second.
Yep.
Your only shooting option is a Land Raider.
That's pretty much what I noticed when I was trying to build the list for
this. There's that Caladius as well, isn't there? The 110 quid Forge World tank of Doom.
Yeah. So if you're not using Forge World, you've got the choice of basically one thing. And it's a Land Raider, and that's a Land Raider.
And they're all strength 12, which means they're going to be wounding knights on 4s. Yeah. And they haven't got any strength higher than 12 shooting.
No.
The only advantage I think would be their Land Raider.
That's a lie. Sorry. There was a strength 18 gun on one of the big flying super duper things.
Yeah, the Ares and things like that. But we'll talk about them more in Thingy. Generally, you don't have much shooting, and trying to build a shooting custodian list, you're onto a loser.
Doesn't play into their strengths. No,
absolutely not. Along those lines, you also don't have any real high damage weapons. Your biggest damage numbers are things like your las cannons.
Yeah.
Most of your stuff is going to be damage 1, damage 2, a few damage 3.
Yeah.
If you need to be knocking 30 wounds off something, it's going to take you a long time.
At shooting, at least, anyway.
At shooting, even in melee, though.
You got access to potential
damage 1, damage 2, damage 3
hits, which can help, though.
You have a few lethal hits, yeah, which means that you skip a wounding step.
Yeah.
But you're still only doing 1 or 2 damage.
Yeah.
Which takes a long time to chew through 30 wounds. You've got relatively poor mobility. One of the major changes from 9th to 10th has been the mobility. Now, in 9th, you weren't massively quick, but you did have very fast bikes. Your Dreadnoughts were very fast.
Okay.
You had your little skimmers that were all quick. Almost universally, everything in the army took a massive movement penalty.
Okay. So the bikes were and are now...
So the bikes have lost about 2 inches off the top of my head.
Okay.
They've gone from 14 to 12.
Okay.
The Terminators have lost 1 inch, which is ironic considering how they're supposed to be the fastest, faster than normal men.
Okay.
But apparently not anymore. The Skimmers have all gone down from 14 to 10 inches. The biggest hit, though, was the poor Dreadnoughts.
Okay.
So your Dreadnoughts have gone from movement 9 to 6.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh,
so the old high-speed running, back-flipping Dreadnoughts that Custodians are famous for,
yeah,
all suddenly got kneecapped.
I was very wary when I was
Wow.
building my list as well, because I know that Forge World for Custodes is fine, but I'm very
6 inches, yeah.
I'm very worried about putting anything Forge World into lists at the moment.
It's very interesting because it feels like I've joked about this at the beginning with a very tough. It feels like someone decided and they made a categoric decision. Custodes are not supposed to be a fast army anymore.
Mhm.
They are in the fluff, but they're not supposed to be anymore. So we're going to just absolutely cripple their speed. So most of your army are moving at about 6 inches now.
Okay. And anybody who doesn't think that a drop of 2 inches on the bikes from 14 to 12 doesn't make that much of a difference, if you're a Blood Angels player, imagine how, or try and remember how much that plus 2 extra inches movement from the banner used to be worth on the Sanguinary Guard in terms of threat range or in terms of extra move on how much it allows you to charge and all this kind of stuff. It really matters. You might not think it does, but it really does.
We'll get into it a little bit later, but the 3 inches on the Dreadnoughts has taken them from arguably the best unit in the list to you're not going to see any. Or very rarely now.
When I looked at the bike as well, the bike's been hit really hard with the Savile launcher, because the Savile launcher now, I believe, it's gone up 1 strength to strength 9, but that doesn't help you at all. It just means the Savile launcher just can't wound armor, whereas before the Savile
it'll wound on 5s.
Well,
yeah, you only get one shot,
but you're only getting 1 shot per bike, and you don't get many bikes because your bikes were like 100 points a bike or something ridiculous. So it's gone from all your bikes wound armor on like 3s to all your bikes now wound armor on 5s, and when you wound on 5s, like, you're never gonna have weight of fire to make that viable. I feel so. Like, when I was trying to build the list, which we'll get to the end,
damage has gone down as well.
Did it used to be D6 plus 3 or D3? It was D3 plus 3 before, wasn't it?
Yeah, now it's just flat 3.
It's just flat 3. Okay, yeah. So like when I was looking at the Savile launcher, I was like, wow, okay, bikes just look useless to me now.
So that mobility has completely changed, and that's upset a lot of people who had collections from before. It's upset me. I've got hordes of Dreadnoughts and fast-moving units that are now really not the way you have to play this army. Anyway, we'll get onto that later. Very costly if you take casualties. If you've only got a few dudes, don't lose them. Because you can very quickly become quite ineffective when it comes to things like taking objectives and stuff, because your little units can get picked off, and that's a big deal. And the big units can be brought down below that effectiveness because people can concentrate fire.
They're tough, but nothing's invulnerable. Far from
absolutely. And this whole new, not so lethal 10th edition turned out to be bollocks. Anyway, and the last thing is very limited selection choices. In fact, the selection choices are so limited that I've just put every data sheet in this presentation.
Yeah,
because there really aren't that many. It's not like
is that including the Imperial Armor one as well?
There's just not many, especially when you start to discount ones that are broadly useless. And we'll get into that later.
Okay,
so it's a big change from what they used to be.
There's 53 slides in here. Okay, that makes a bit more sense now.
We're going to go through quick. Anyway, so the big change, the big takeaway from this is they're probably a little bit tougher than they used to be, but they're a damn sight slower. You're not going to have people whizzing around and doing shenanigans anymore. The shenanigans are gone.
I really want to see a Custodes versus Death Guard game now. That sounds like it'd be hilarious.
It'd be the dullest thing ever. Everybody moves 5 inches. Now, right, so let's get into it then.
Okay.
Let's start off with our special rules, and we've got a couple. So the first one's nice and simple. Aegis the Emperor. Everybody's got a feel no pain 4-up against mortals.
Okay.
Which is a nice to have. I think I've found roughly mortals are a little bit less prolific in the games I've been playing.
Fair enough.
It's funny you say that. Mortals are less prolific until you have some unit that's been badly designed and has an obnoxious amount of mortals. Because that's where it is.
You've got the devastating wounds and things like that ones.
Yeah. And you can build so that your army chugs them out if you want to. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
And it's only some armies can do that as well. So I just feel that against your variety of opponents, this doesn't come into play quite as often as it perhaps used to.
Correct, I agree.
But against some armies, it's actually still very valuable. It's a good little, it's a good rule. The last one is your martial Cathars. Now, they used to be very, very complex, but also very, very powerful. They're now not nearly as complex, and conversely, not nearly as powerful, but they're still useful. Now, the difference being is you no longer have to plan them out before the game starts. You just pick the one that's most appropriate for your army for that particular fight phase, because that's all they affect now. They only affect the fight phase.
I do like about 10th that they've streamlined all the horrendous synergies and layering and complexities of all these extra
Oh yeah,
rules you had to pay
Admech, we're looking at
attention
you.
to. Yeah, it's true.
Anyway, so you've got 3 of these stances that you can pop at any particular time. And unlike the old one, you just pick which one is most effective. It's not a kind of one and done deal. So your first one is Captaris. Each time a melee attacks one of your units, -1 to hit.
Brilliant.
Which is a nice
Extra
defensive
survivability in melee. Great.
Brilliant. You've got Dakatari, which gives all your melee weapons sustain hits 1.
Yeah, when you want to chew through hordes, brilliant.
When you want
Great.
to chew through hordes. And you've got Rendax, which gives your whole army lethal hits in melee.
Which is great when you want to like hit some vehicles or monsters in melee.
Which is great if you want to hit some vehicles or monsters in battle. When you do the maths on it, you haven't got that many models, which means you haven't got that many attacks, which means you're not actually getting that many wounds. But it does mean you'll get a fair few more that you would have got otherwise.
Cool.
So nice and straightforward. Strats then. I said we've only got a few and they're all pretty good. So the first one here, we've got Slayer of Nightmares. It's 1 CP. To the end of your phase, each time a model in a unit makes an attack, add 1 to wound. So against monsters and vehicles.
Okay, so you could put that on a strength 12. Oh, it's fight phase only.
Fight phase only.
Still useful.
It's only in melee. It's still useful, but not as useful as it potentially could be. Now, the beauty of this is a lot of these have been streamlined, which means they now work on things like Dreadnoughts.
Because it's just a Custodes unit, which is cool.
It's just Custodes unit. And the same with these martial guitars.
Yep.
Your next one, Unwavering Sentinels. Fights first. 2 CP, but give a unit fights first if it's near your objective.
Sounds great.
Very tasty. Arcane Genetic Alchemy's had a little bit of a change. It's now the old -1 damage.
Oh, hold on. Should you just go back a second to that last start of the fight phase? So that's after all the charges have been declared, isn't it? But before the actual fighting happens.
Yes,
so that's
when
good.
want,
So you can do it after they've successfully charged into your unit.
Yeah. So it's pretty useful, but it is 2 CP. Arcane Genetic Alchemy is your old -1 to damage, which is rather handy. Again, 2 CP, but
shooting phase or fight phase. Okay, yep, cool. Oh, it's got to be infantry this time, right? That's all right.
Yeah, only infantry this time. Avenge the Fallen. If you've taken any casualties, you get to add an attack.
Nice.
If you've taken half casualties, then you get to add 2 attacks, which is quite good on small units in some ways, because if you've got, say, a unit of only a couple of models and it loses 1, then suddenly you get a couple more attacks back, and it's not quite such a bitter pill to swallow. And it's only 1 CP as well, which is quite tasty.
Nice. And again, that's on all Custodes units. That's good.
Then you've got your 2 kind of shield host ones. Now, these ones are not quite so good. Your first one lets you bring back a model. Now, when it's a 70-point or model, then that's quite handy. Doesn't work on bikes.
Okay.
Cool. You can only use it once per battle.
Sorry?
You can only use the one on the left once per battle.
On the same unit, yeah.
On the same unit.
Okay.
But it is handy to bring. The biggest thing you can bring back really is a Terminator, but that's still a 60-point model. And the other one, Sworn Guardians, gives you sticky objectives, but it's handy in some ways because it lets you if you've not brought any cheap sisters, it lets you sticky an objective. But I've not really found myself using it, to be honest.
Yeah, cheap sisters at 40 points. You're hard pushed not to bring some, to be fair.
And to be honest, I've not really used Vigil Ending either.
Okay.
Generally, bringing back a dude, whilst nice, has not been as effective as these previous ones.
Fair enough.
But they're all pretty good. Right, enhancements. We've only got 4, same as everybody else, pretty much. You've got 4 of these, and 3 of them are good. You've got Unstoppable Destroyer, which lets you do a few mortal wounds when you on charges. Yep. Not bad. You've got Veiled Blade, which I quite like. It just adds a couple of attacks to a unit.
Yep.
To a model. And also you can triple their objective control for a turn.
Which is going to be potentially game-changing.
Which can be potentially quite powerful. You've got Ceaseless Hunter.
Yep.
Which gives you once per battle. Sorry, you can fall back and charge or fall back and shoot. And for the whole unit, which is quite handy on a big unit, because although it's not great shooting, it's actually quite a lot of shooting
Oh, it's fallback, shoot, and charge.
It is.
Nice.
And once for battle, you can run away when they try and get into combat with you.
Okay.
Which is, again, pretty handy. The last one is the same as everything else when it comes to leadership stuff in this edition and every other previous edition. You get a leadership characteristic of 5 up, and once for battle, you can unbattle shock someone.
Yeah, battle shock's not proving to be.
It's 10 points. Sometimes you chuck it on something if you've got
Yeah,
10 points to spare. Right. Data sheets then. I said I was going to whiz through these.
Yeah.
So I've got all of these. You're going to have to slow me down and give me your points as we go along. But I thought I'd just whiz over with like quick overview of each one. So the start off.
I was going to say, do we give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down on each one if we think it's good?
Yeah, why not? Let's do that.
All right.
But you got to say it because I can't see you at the moment because I can see the PowerPoint.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Right. Okay. So first data sheet then. Custodian Guard.
You just don't want to see our faces, don't you? I see how it is.
Yeah. So Custodian Guard, absolute mainstay of your army. They're 45 points a model. They're borderline undercosted.
Okay.
Toughness 6 on your basic infantry with a 2-up save, 3 wounds. That's pretty spectacular. Each guy's got 2 attacks. They're damage 2.
Yeah. Ouch.
Sorry, 2 attacks. Each guy's got 5 attacks with their spears and damage 2 and AP -2 at strength 7. And a weapon skill of 2 up. And if you bring the Sentinel Blades, that drops to a strength 6 and 1 damage, but you get to bring a shield as well, which gives you a bonus wound. And 4 wounds on a basic dude is pretty handy.
Yeah, they look pretty tasty.
They're tough. They're cheap comparatively.
They'll be OC 3 each because why wouldn't you take a Vexilla for free?
You have to give up the spear to take the Vexilla, right?
Yeah, I always do. If you're within range of an objective marker, you can reroll wounds.
Yeah.
And if you're not in range of an objective marker, you reroll wounds of 1.
Brilliant.
That's really quite nice.
When
and
you
once
hit on 2s across the board. Yeah. Ouch.
Which is pretty good as well. Your shooting's not that exciting. You've only got 2 shots, but each shot's damage 2. So damage 2 bolters is not a bad thing. With AP -1 as well.
Yeah, they're mastercrafted bolters, essentially.
Yeah, that's pretty tasty for 45 points. And I absolutely think that they're probably undercosted. The only thing holding them back from being truly undercosted is the rest of the codex.
So, John, give us a quick review on how one of these compares against one Sanguinary Guard.
It's kind of a joke for them only being 2 more points, isn't it?
Yeah, you're not.
Are you waiting for me to say that? Well, potentially 2 more wounds, 2 more toughness, 4 up invan. I mean, yeah, they're slow. I guess that's the thing. The fact that I think you have to give up the spear to take the Vexilla, but if you take the Vexilla, then each guy is OC 3.
Yeah.
And you can have each guy with a shield, right?
Yeah. And you can, but you lose the spear for the shield. You get the Sentinel Blade as well, which is not quite as good.
Okay.
It makes you guys more tough. You can also take them in units of 10.
Yeah.
What's the minimum size?
I think I'd rather take the sword than the spear all the time because you're losing 12 inches of range on shit shooting. Make a big deal to me.
And they're better in melee, like you said, and they're going to hang around. And yeah, I don't know. I like Custodian Guards. I think they're really good. 45 points a model. Squads of 3, squads of 4 for me would work just dandy.
Yeah. I'm going to say this right up from the start. I think this is the best unit in the Codex.
Cool.
Or the index we're in at the moment. I think they're brilliant. Moving on from them, we've got the next unit, which is the same guys but wearing dresses.
Okay.
They're more or less the same.
They're not battle line.
They're not battle line anymore.
They still have OC2.
They still have OC2, which is pretty good. Now they get to take axes. Axes used to be a viable decision to make between the two. I really don't think they are anymore.
Okay.
So if you bring an axe over your spear, you lose an attack.
I agree.
You lose a point of weapon skill. You gain a couple of points of strength and you gain a point of damage, but you lose a point of AP. And I just don't think it's ever worth it.
Losing the weapon skill and the AP is a killer right there.
I just don't know why you would do that. That upsets me a little bit because I've got boxes of Alarus with axes.
Okay.
But yeah, nowadays I think just bring the spears. Now they've got some quite good special rules, these ones, because they do cost an extra 5 points, and for that extra 5 points, what you're really getting is just different rules. While a character is leading this unit, each time an attack targets this unit, if the strength characteristic of that unit is greater than toughness characteristic of this unit, subtract 1 to wound. This means that anything sort of like strength 7 or above that's shooting at these guys, which a lot of the stuff with high AP is, it's effectively going to work like transhuman.
Yeah, it's like a transhuman up to strength 12, I guess.
Yeah, so all the way up to strength 12, they're wounding you on 4s.
Wow. Tanky fuckers, aren't they?
And even over strength 12, they're still only wounding you on 3s, which makes them really tanky. You can only take them in a unit of 6, which loses them a little bit. Their second rule also makes them crazy tanky. Once for battle, everybody gets a 4-up, feel no pain.
Brilliant.
It just means that they don't die.
I bet, yeah.
It makes them really, really tough. Now, do I think that they're better than the Custodian Guard? I don't. I think for 5 extra or 5 less points, I'd rather take Custodian Guard. I can still put a shield on him to give me an extra wound.
Yep.
And I can run him in a bigger unit. But it is still very, very powerful because it also, remember, confers that transhuman to the character as well, leading it. So
yeah, that figures.
And Land Raiders can't take big units of Custodian Guard, but they can take a fairly big unit of Custodian Wardens led by a character.
Okay.
So if you're going to put them in transports, I think these might be a better choice. But other than that, I think maybe the Custodian Guard are. Speaking of, Adeptus Custodians, now these are one of the ones that got a bit of a hit with the change from 9th to 10th in some ways. They all lost a point of movement, which makes them quite slow now.
Yep.
But they all gain toughness 7.
Okay.
Pretty good for Terminators.
Which is pretty good for Terminators. They've got some cool rules. Slayers of Tyrants, re-rolling wounds against characters, monsters, and vehicles. Pretty handy.
Yep.
And Golden Light means you can pick them up and put them down once per game somewhere else.
Yep.
It doesn't make up completely for their loss of ability, but it is still very handy if you want to move them across to another place, like an objective or something. They also have the benefit of being able to run them in units of 2.
Okay.
Yep.
And tiny little units that can redeploy to take an objective.
Are incredibly useful in the objectives and winning.
Or teleport, deploy homers and shit like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even though there's only 2 of them, 2 of them at toughness 7 with a 4-up invuln and 2-up save, it's still fairly. You've got to dedicate some proper shooting to get rid of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course you do.
Okay, so I think they're pretty good.
All right.
Versus Praetors. These guys took a mega hit. They lost a decent chunk of movement.
Right.
They gained a tiny bit of toughness, but
I'm in for so much for kicking later in this video, aren't I? Oh well.
They're really just took such a hit. Their salvo launchers just is damage 3, AP -2, strength 9. But you only get 1 shot. It's not gonna. There's nothing you want to shoot at with it, really.
Well, I think the strength of these
killing vehicles.
Yeah, these bikes were designed to put a punch into a vehicle and then charge infantry with a lance.
Yeah.
Now
I mean,
they can't do
it's the same
vehicle
strength
damage.
as the melter gun, really. So you're absolutely right in that against things that the melter gun used to be able to kill, they're just not that effective.
Yeah, I didn't realize these were 90 points a bike, but when I looked at them, I think they used to be 85 last edition. I figured if they're anything like that, they're completely
70.
Were they well? Yeah, I don't even think I would take them at 70
for the
points.
mobility, then, yeah. If they've scaled down the mobility so widely for Custodes, then them being quite so mobile makes sense, I suppose.
They've scaled down the mobility even for these guys, and they've put up the price quite a lot, and they've also scaled back their killing quite a lot.
Yeah.
They've got lance on their lances, which is handy, I suppose.
Yep.
But they've got a couple of special rules, and when they came out, people were really excited about this. But in practice, I just don't think it's that good.
Statistically, even if you brought 5 of them, which is 450 points, if you shoot them at like a piece of armor, you're going to wound like 1, 2 times maximum, so the armor fails 1 save. So 450 points to do 3 damage to a tank with their Sablo launchers. Like, it's insane. These things are... The Sablo launcher needs to either go back up to strength 12, or these need to drop to about 60 points of model.
They're hugely overcosted. People are really excited about their special ability, this Quicksilver Execution, but in practice, I just don't think it's very good. Once per battle, after this unit ends an advanced move, you can select one enemy unit that it moved over, then roll a d6 for each model of the unit, each 2 up. The enemy unit suffers 2 mortal wounds. Now, if you've got a big unit of these, let's say you've got that unit, Johnson, so about 5 of them, and you fly over, you've got a good chance of doing 10 mortal wounds to the unit you fly over. But if you do that,
they're big based. You've got to start and end your movement.
Big base, you've got to start and end your movement.
It's only infantry, yeah.
And they've got no real way of advance and charge. So what you're saying is, instead of charging my opponent, I'm going to fly over them and try and do some mortal wounds. But now I've just put my very expensive and not that tough unit
out in the open.
Out in the open behind my enemy's army with no way of shooting or charging.
And it's only infantry, which arguably with the same unit you would get 25 attacks hitting on 2. So
it's not strictly only infantry. It could be on bikers or beasts or whatnot. But yeah, it's basically only infantry.
It's a completely irrelevant rule, Tony. You're right.
I feel like the temptation to use it is saying, I really don't like this unit and I want to take them off the board.
Yeah. This is a huge thumbs down for me.
Just really can't make it work in any kind of way that whenever you use it, you're exposing them and they're gonna die because they're relatively vulnerable. They're incredibly expensive.
It's not good at all. It's not good at all.
You're generally just better off charging something because you get to charge and shoot something instead.
Yeah, of course.
So someone at GW really hates bikes. Moving on then, prosecutors. Now, I think these are pretty good. These are your basic Sisters of Silence.
Yeah.
We don't care about their stats. They're just toughness 3 bodies.
Yeah.
They cost 40 points.
And their battle line.
And the battle line.
6 units at 40 points is what? 240 points?
Yeah.
For 6 battle line units? Yeah, great.
So they're absolutely brilliant for doing objectives. Don't expect them to do anything else.
Yeah. Put one on your back home objective, put the other 5 units into strategic reserves or something. Great.
Just run them around doing things.
They have a decent save, to be fair. If you put them in cover, for a 40-point unit, it's a decent save. I mean,
tough at 3. They've only got 1 wound.
But if you took Sisters of Battle, you're not getting a 5-man Battle Sister squad for anywhere near 40 points. They're like,
no, but these are only unit of 4.
They're
as well,
comparable to Voidsman and Exaction Squad, which is fine.
A little bit better, I think.
You get 1 less model. But they've got a slightly better save.
Yeah, because they get access to the faction rules and strats and all that. They're absolutely better.
They get access to some of the faction rules and strats and things.
Yeah. Well, they're custodies, so they get the ignores, the feel the pain.
They do
against and they get the Katars.
They don't. They don't have the martial Katar rule.
Oh no, they don't. It's not on their abilities list. Sorry, you're right. My bad.
So they don't get martial Katars, and a lot of the strats specifically exclude Sisters of Silence.
Okay.
I still think they're decent for 40 points.
Fine, 40 points. They're just chaff.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you need. In such an expensive army, they are your source of chaff if you don't want to run Exaction Squads or anything like that.
Yeah.
Vigilators, they cost 60 points. You still only get 4. They've got reasonable melee, but it's not quite as good as your basic Custodian Guard.
Yeah, I agree. They're useless. You got no
point. What's the point in taking them?
Shame, because they're pretty, but yeah, don't take them.
Because you take them because you got 20 points at the end of a list that you think you should take them rather than the previous guys.
In some ways, I think the previous guys are more useful, though.
Yeah, they get dev wounds. I mean, dev wounds isn't.
Yeah, but they only get dev wounds against Psychers.
The next squad get dev wounds.
Oh, right. In melee, yeah, okay.
It's all right, but they're pretty lightweight bodies. They're only units of 4. They're very easy for someone to pick up.
Yeah. Okay, agreed.
Okay. Witch Seekers, they're 60 points for 4 as well. I think they're slightly better than Vigilators because a load of Flamers can come in handy.
Yeah, that's fair.
Their scout move is quite useful if you just want to run someone forward.
True.
But I still think if you're going to bring sisters, you're going to bring these.
Okay. Yeah, I think I agree.
All right.
Actually, some other reason.
Makes sense.
There is some play in sticking a unit of them in a rhino to run the rhino forward and things like that. But
yeah, I'd still go for the cheap ones.
I think I'd just go with the cheap ones. So this is a bit more interesting. Your shield captain. He's a little bit better than a normal custodian. He's got the same sort of weapon options. Really, though, you're bringing him for the strategic mastery. Which,
unlike a Space Marine captain, can be used on a model from your army, just anywhere.
Yeah. Once per battle round, select a model from your army with this ability. That model's unit can be targeted with a stratagem for 0 CP. Now, this is really useful because something you might have noticed, the leadership of your custodians is no longer very good. They've gone from leadership 11 to the same leadership as Space Marines.
Okay.
That means that it's a viable, weirdly, they're actually relatively vulnerable to battle shock. You've got a lot of units with not particularly good leadership. And sorry, when I say a lot of units, you don't have many units.
Leadership, yeah.
Which means that if you've only got a couple of units and someone forces battle shock tests on them, you can suddenly lose your entire army's objective control.
Okay.
So they are particularly weak against battle shock shenanigans, especially anything that reduces their leadership.
Fair enough.
So bringing this guy to make it so you can pass the battle shock test for free, can be very, very powerful.
Okay.
It also use those transform ones.
Can I just say that I kind of hate this character's melee in general because there's no weapon there that is any use whatsoever against armor. And
there isn't in melee though on an infantry character. That's just like across the board.
I know. Well, you see that today with the re-release of like the Space Marine Jump Captain, don't you? It's just like they've just melee characters cannot deal with armor anymore. So why do you not just bring all the armor?
Because they haven't got all the armor.
That is an ongoing metagame problem. You're absolutely right, but by saying you dislike its melee because it can't kill armor is saying you dislike all melee because it can't kill armor.
Okay, then I dislike all melee at the moment.
Yeah, all infantry. It
is a problem. Again, though, like we said earlier, I think probably you're best off running the Guardian Spear on him. It's the best all-rounder.
I think this guy gets, or I think the Custodes army gets hurt way more than other armies, though, right? Because from what,
their ability to deal with armor is quite low.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
So yeah, he's great, but mostly for his ability.
Yep.
And yeah, it's not bad, is it?
It's an excellent ability.
Yeah. Once per game, you can activate all of the Katars at the same time, which is
so just muller something in melee.
The Alaris version is basically the same. It costs the same number of points. He's a bit slower. He's a bit tougher. His special rule, I think, isn't quite as good. Defiant to the last. If he gets killed in melee without getting a fight, then he gets to fight. But he's in a unit of Alaris.
Yeah.
And the chances of him getting killed in melee without getting a fight are pretty slim.
That makes sense.
Just don't see it come up. I've played quite a few games with these guys now in 10th, and I love the Alaris Captain. He's one of my favourite models, and I don't think I've ever seen it come up in a game.
Sure.
But you can put him with Alaris, and you can't put him with Alaris. That's why you take him.
Yep, fair enough.
Your next one is the Dawn Eagle jet bike. Bikes are terrible.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, I looked at the captain on the bike. He has the exact same problems as the exact same problems as the bikes. Too expensive, doesn't do any damage to anything except melee. Sorry, anything except infantry, basically.
His special rules are actually pretty good. Sweep in advance. When you consolidate, you can move 6 inches instead of 3. Once per battle, you can fall back out of engagement range without penalties, things like that. That's really powerful because you can charge next turn. But bikes are terrible.
Yeah.
So he's got nothing to lead is your problem there.
Well, he's leading bikes. I mean,
bikes are bad.
Devil's advocate, I suppose, like... Devil's advocate could be like if you run him plus 3 bikes and you just focus on killing enemy infantry, and that's the job that the bikes are going to do. That would be great. But the problem is this army doesn't have the flexibility to deal with all the other shit like armor that's in the meta. So that plan of doing the bikes thing is just kind of wasted.
With the exception of the Sisters of Silence, every model in your army is great at doing that.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
There's just no reason to use him, which is sad again because they're really cool models. Your Blade Champion is 120 points. Is it 120 points? I might have misread that. It might be 100 points actually. That might be a mistake on my thing. Mark's getting the app up to double check it, but we'll just take it as written as it is. I think this guy's an absolute bargain for you leading a unit. Stick him in a unit. That unit gets advance and charge.
100 points. Yeah.
Yes, it's 100 points, not 120. To give advance and charge to a unit, stick him in a big unit of Custodian Guard. That makes them move a lot quicker.
Yep.
You can also heroically intervene for no
CP.
No CP, yeah.
No CP. So re-rolling advance and charge rolls and the advance and charge once per game is really, really powerful. He's also got a reasonable amount of melee output himself.
You get to choose which of your profiles you want to do on top of your guitar. So his flexibility in melee is insane. Yeah.
He no longer has a great anti-armor melee profile. But
nobody does.
I was going to say, I disagree with you saying he's flexible, Mark, because, like, you can kill loads of different infantry, but, like, that's all this army can do.
I'm working off the basis that infantry don't kill vehicles in melee now, and it's just accept it and move on, because that's the way
he is one of your only sources of AP3 in the entire army.
But it's rubbish, Dreads. I don't know.
It is rubbish that they can't kill vehicles, but it's the way it is.
It means that you can kill things like Terminators and that a lot more effectively. Or AP2 is better for that, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, kills
Sanguinary Guard,
cool.
things like that. Things with 2 armor saves. It makes them very useful for killing.
Yeah, in principle, I like attaching him to a unit. I like advancing and charging. I like heroicing. He's very similar to like the Primaris Company champion, but the problem is I just don't see any use for bringing these because you're in a meta where everybody's bringing half their units as vehicles, so you're going to run into vehicles, and when you do, these guys just bounce off. Like I've been running Blade Guard, and the amount of times they've just bounced off and done nothing. It's this, like it's the same strength 5, strength 6, -2 damage. They just don't do anything. Like my Blade Guards sit on objectives or do actions. They don't kill anything anymore.
What you have to remember with these guys is that's their entire army. They have no better way of doing it. So it's kind of melee is bad into vehicles, but they only have melee. So you've got to try and make your most out of it that you can. So things like Alarus getting reroll wounds against vehicles, try only winning on 5s, but you've got reroll wounds on there which can bring up those numbers a little bit. This guy, he's not great to vehicles, but remember you can use that martial guitar that gives him lethal hits. And when you start bringing lethal hits in,
volume of attacks counts.
Can he join Custodian Guard?
He can.
Right, well then maybe he can join Custodian Guard to get the reroll wounds from the Custodian Guard, and then maybe he's not terrible.
And then you've got devastating wounds, damage 3, and reroll wounds.
Yeah.
And AP3. I know. But so I think he's quite good. But if you're getting the opinion now, or the sort of feeling now that the way these guys beat armored armies is by trying not to die and scoring all the points. That's kind of how they have to play it.
Okay.
Especially to things like knights and things like that. They need to get in there, move fast, so this guy can help do that.
And there have been some Custodes armies performing at top tables and stuff. The tournament results have shown over the last few weeks.
That is true.
They have. What we're seeing though is them going 3-2.
Okay.
They're winning 60% of their games because they're going 3-2. Because if they run into really heavy armored armies, they just don't have an answer for it.
Fair enough.
So things like knights and that are just not happening.
Okay. So you're tanky for the resilience rather than the killing ability. Okay.
So you're sitting at 3-2, which is it's still a 60% win ratio, but if you notice, they're not really winning any tournaments.
Okay. Well, nothing is an Eldar these days, but
nothing is an Eldar, but you see what I mean with that. They always lose They always get a couple of matchups they just can't win.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Unite Centura. Don't see the point. It's a character that buffs your super cheap sisters.
Yeah.
Marginally. Costs 75 points. Don't bother.
I'd agree with that.
I don't see any reason to run her now.
Can't see any reason for her. She makes sisters move slightly faster, but then she costs 75 points. Bring 2 more units of sisters for that. Nearly.
Yeah, definitely.
Trajan, though, he's a bargain. He's not as good as he used to be, but he's only 145 points now, so I'll take that.
Yep.
Strength 10 in melee, which means you can occasionally put a small dent in a vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
He's only AP -2, but he's got 6 attacks, and once per game you can give him 12 attacks.
Yeah, I don't think he's your like trump card, I guess. So, yeah, I like him.
He's your biggest hitter in melee, and for 145 points, I think it's an absolute bargain. When you compare that to that, I know which one I'd rather bring.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah, no, 100%.
So he's pretty good. He's got decent melee. He's got actually reasonably good shooting for someone who's not really a shooting character. And his moment shackle ability, giving a unit fights first or giving himself a 2-up invuln. That I've not done that yet. To be honest, I've never given him that 2-up invuln.
No, I think the other
He's
one.
always in a big unit.
Yeah.
And nobody with precision hits that I've really fought so far has had enough AP to trouble him.
It's fight phase. You've got a character who's a leader who joins a unit. It's unlikely that you're going to do that, to be fair.
Most of the time, he's either given my unit fights first, or I've just had 12 attacks to try and kill whatever it is.
Yeah, either of those you can see using all day, all day, all week,
which is pretty handy. Valerian, he's 5 points less than your normal shield captain, but he's 5 points not as good.
I don't know. Attach a unit, and then they're AP worse by 1. This makes a unit extra bit tanky on top.
He makes a unit in melee slightly more tanky, but remember, in melee, everybody's AP dropped anyway.
Okay, yeah, right.
Most things are only AP 1, maybe AP 2, and they've all got 2-up armor save and a 4-up invuln save anyway. He loses the ability to get the free strats. He costs 5 points less. He's slightly better damage output. He's got I think 1 extra attack. He's strength 8 instead of strength 7. And AP 3 instead of AP 2. So it's slightly better damage output wise. And the fun reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, or 1 saving throw for this model.
Do you want to just scroll back and find me a shield captain for a second, wherever the nearest one is?
There he is.
Once per battle round, you can select one model from your army with this ability. Okay, so they're like Space Marine captains. It doesn't matter how many shield captains you bring, you can only use strategic mastery once.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Okay.
So it's the same number of attacks.
Okay.
He's just got an extra point of strength and AP
on
his spear.
All right. Thank you. Cheers.
He's okay, but I think generally you just take the other guy.
Yeah, I think so.
Alea, she costs 5 points more. She's still pointless.
Yeah, pretty model. Very pretty model. Yeah.
Reasonably good in melee, but again, 80 points. But save up 20 more. Bring that shield. Bring that blade champion.
Yeah. Okay.
We should have put this tier list. We could have just been putting this like F.
Generally, it's a rhino, but it's got ballistic skill 2, which is funny.
And it doesn't have any.
It's only got ballistic skill 2 on the missile. All hunter killer missiles are ballistic skill 2, aren't they?
Oh, sorry,
hunter killer missiles are ballistic skill 2. It doesn't have any firing deck like the Space Marine Rhino.
No, it doesn't.
So for some reason, Custodian's bolters are too big to put up to the window. I guess that's because they're on
Custodians
stabs.
can't get in anyway. It's only the sisters assignment.
I was about to say, what does it carry? Does it only carry sisters? Yeah,
okay, well, I guess for whatever reason, their bolters can't get up to the window. It makes no sense.
It's a rhino. Who cares? It's a rhino.
Yeah.
It's a land raider. Ballistic skill 2 is nice.
Yep, cross board. It's got assault ramp. Great.
I think that if I was playing Custodes, I feel like I have to lean into this. I don't have a choice.
It's your only tank if you're not playing Forge World. And it's better than a normal land raider.
Because of ballistic skill 2 up, yes. And so you get 4 las cannons hitting on 2s. D6 plus 1. That's your only anti-armor because the Telamon, the Achilles, the Contemptors, they all are trash now. They're absolutely trash. So when we get to my list, Well, we'll see how many Land Raiders I've got on my 1,000-point list.
Yeah. They're your best long-range anti-tank in your army, arguably. You've got one other unit that's got decent long-range anti-tank, but Land Raiders have got your other thing.
Yeah.
They've gone from a unit that you never saw to a unit you see in a lot of lists now.
Fair enough.
Especially when you stick Trajan inside it and other things like that.
I don't think you've got a lot of choice. And the second they shoot your Land Raider, I guess you just have to have the CP to smoke it. Make it -1 to hit. Make it ignore 1 AP. So basically, even if you're hit with -4, which is kind of arguably the nastiest you're going to get hit with.
-1 AP.
Smoke screen. Smoke screen grants you stealth, which is -1 to hit, and it gives you cover, so +1 to your save.
Oh, cover. All right. Okay, fine.
Sorry, I call it like ignore 1 AP, but it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Cover. So yeah, you just the second they shoot a Land Raider, you just smoke it.
Yep. They've gone from a never see to actually quite common because in this edition tanks are really important.
Can I ask a question? So this only costs 5 more points than the Space Marine Land Raider.
Yeah.
And all its guns are 2-up rather than they're 3-up.
Yeah.
That's the best value 5 points I've ever fucking seen in my life.
Yeah, but it doesn't make up for the shit we have everywhere else.
No, but I mean, would you pay 5 points on the Marine Land Raider to change all 4 last cannons from a 3-up to a 2-up?
The Marines have got a nice big codex that goes around that.
Cost is relative to everything else in the index or the codex at this point.
Yeah, it's 5 points more, and it's a lot more than 5 points better than a Marine one, but you get things like Gladiators and Vindicators and other sources of anti-tank in your army.
True.
That they just don't have. This is their only source of ranged anti-tank. If you're sticking to non-Forge World, this is your only source of anti-tank in the entire army.
Okay.
Which is why it needs to have a little bit of a discount.
Anti-tank shooting, anyway. Yeah.
Anti-tank shooting. Yeah. And then lastly, you've got the Venerable. Is that the last one? Yeah. The Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought. It's 185 points. It's a Contemptor. It gets ballistic skill 2.
Mm-hmm.
But it's useless.
It still gets up.
It's got the get up rule, but it's 185 points, which makes it very expensive. And it's lost 3 inches of movement, which is very nice.
The movement is what I didn't notice when I was writing my list, so I might regret
They used to be
pretty
whatever. Tasty, but 3 inches is a lot.
It's the multi-melta change that's huge as well, right? Like you lose 6 inches on the multi-melta, and now they only wound armor on 5s rather than probably wounding armor on 3s. Multi-meltas are they have so few shots.
There's a fair amount of toughness 9 vehicles out there, but you still got to count on killing toughness 12 vehicles ultimately when you get right down to it.
My experience tells me that there's a lot more at toughness 10 than there is at toughness 9, but maybe I'm wrong.
I feel quite similar at the moment because the Redemptors being at toughness 10, which for me is a bit of a bitter pill to swallow. The fact that the Redemptors suddenly shot up and become much more tough than these guys who are made out of Auramite, which is much tougher than Ceramite, except for Redemptors, they're just better.
Well, these are 2-up, 5-up, and Redemptors aren't quite.
They're toughness 10.
2-up, 5-up, toughness 10. Yeah, okay.
And then that's the same with the Telemon. The Telemon's taken a bit of a hit comparatively to them. Anyway, so it's a Contemptor. It's all right. It's a bit better, but it's very slow and it's very expensive.
Okay.
And that's it. That's the whole codex.
Are Space Marine Contemptors 6-inch move?
No.
Yeah. No?
No, I think they're 8.
They used to be 8, but I think they got nerfed to 6 as well.
Are you sure? I'm not.
That's the thing I've missed if they were.
Oh, no, they're 6. You're right. Yeah.
Oh, well.
I don't know why. The fact that little chicken Dreadnought with his little legs, stubby, is now just as quick as graceful Contemptor Dreadnought that can sprint and jump.
Death Company Dread is 8-inch movement.
Yeah. So little stubby legs, they're moving really fast. He's like a little terrier.
I was going to say, this is why I keep complaining Armigers have a 12-inch move. What gives? Why?
Yeah. Armigers for their cost are ridiculous.
For 140 points.
Armigers
in this army,
as fast. Yes, you can. They're as fast as my jet bikes.
Yes.
Armigers in Custodes is probably a good choice now. I think
It is
about it.
Armigers are good with everyone, man. Honestly, they're so cheap.
You're not wrong.
Or as is, to be honest, bringing one of the big shooty knights.
Yeah.
I think the
let's see
Armigers are
that.
better than the big shooty knights because
Yeah,
you put all
it's
your
just give you some shooting. It's pretty
bells
handy.
in one basket or whatever you call it.
Who cares?
It's the
whether
speed
shooting-
and the OC and the toughness and the shooting in all in one package.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, so I'm going to talk about Forge World,
Okay.
but we're going to be really quick through this
All right.
because
Perfect.
Because you
it's
think
largely all trash.
I couldn't find a good Forge World unit for them when I was looking to build a list.
I saw one that I would have looked at, but yeah, okay.
And the one that Mark's thinking of is probably the one I'm thinking of, which is the only really any good one now.
Okay.
So we're going to go through these quick because they ain't pretty. We'll
Yep.
start off with the Custodian Guard with Adeptus and Pyrothite Spears. You can only take them in units of 5. They cost quite a lot more than your regular guys. There's no reason to take them.
No.
No, they're just not as good, and they cost a lot more. And the fact you've got to take a big fat unit really limits them.
Fair enough.
And no units of 10 either.
Okay.
Sagittarium, they used to be quite good, but their range weapons have taken a massive hit. They've lost their beam profile, and now they can just have devastating wounds once per game. Devastating wounds with damage 2 isn't really all that exciting.
No, not really.
Are the Sagittarium the guys with the pistols?
No, they're the guys with the big guns.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry.
So they used to have a beam profile, which was really quite powerful. They've just got rid of that.
Mm-hmm.
250 points for 5 guys with heavy bolters.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're skill 2 and they're fairly tough, but they're just pretty rubbish. They can suppress opponents to get -1 to hit, but you can have -1 to hit if I put in the right guitar anyway.
Yeah. Okay. They look terrible. Absolutely.
They're pretty dreadful. I'm salty about that because I've got 10 of them. Quilon, this is the other kind of Terminators.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to take units of 3. They cost a bit more than your standard Terminators, and I don't think they're very good.
What I don't get is, like, when they're designing this codex, when they're writing all these data sheets, do they not finish writing 99% of the data sheets and go, these guys have nothing that kills armor? Okay, great, let's, ship them out the door. It's like, come on. So, you get so many different versions of Terminators. One set of them should have fucking strength 10 weaponry. Like, why not can one set of them not be like that? I don't get it.
Losing your grenade launcher and the shots from the spear or whatever just to take one of those other weapons isn't worth it, and they cost more. And the less flexible you've got to take unit 3. Speaking of Dreadnoughts, there's the now much slower Achilles Dreadnought. Used to be an absolute terror. Now only moves 6 inches and only has a 12-inch range.
I looked at this, and this used to be so versatile. Used to be able to kill like infantry and vehicles, do all sorts of things. Now
it was a little bit less survivable than the Galatus, but had much more versatile and better damage output. So it was a real choice between the two.
Yeah.
And it was fast at 9-inch move, decent range with its spear, and they've always had a problem with anti-tank. And Strength 9 was really useful back then because you could wound all vehicles on 3s. Well, now you can wound them on 5s instead with your one shot.
On the flip side, it is viable anti-armor in melee. With strength 12 with lance is going to be wounding all vehicles on 3s at least.
If you can get there.
But it's a 6-inch tank, or 6-inch shred, sorry.
If it kept its 9-inch move, maybe? On 6? No way, man.
And it doesn't have as good of invuln save as the others.
And if it's going to move 6, then some of its weapons need to be assault because you're going to need to advance it. So you advance it and it can't even shoot any. Not a single one of those guns can be shot.
No. So that's now hot garbage, even if it is only 155 points. The Galatus, why is it 175? It's 20 odd more points than the other one. It's still too slow. Yes, you get a 4-up invuln instead of 5-up. Yes, you've got a reasonable flamery shooter attack, but it's only 12-inch range. And in melee, strength 8, damage 3.
Yeah, they're tanky in melee, but that's about it.
What was the strength on their swords last edition? Do you remember?
Strength was lower. It used to be strength 6.
Strength 6, okay.
But, yeah. You don't need
Okay,
that profile.
No, I still don't like it.
So it's lost AP because everything's lost AP.
Yeah.
Gained a little bit of strength, but that's not going to help it against its intended targets. It was always really I want to tie up your elite infantry melee unit.
Mm-hmm.
But now you don't need a unit to do that.
I guess it does that, but everybody else does that, so there's no point in taking it.
No, and you only move 6 inches.
Okay.
The Agamatus, that's your other bikes. These are even more shite.
Okay.
They cost, you have to take them in a unit of 3. They cost slightly more.
And they still do the exact same thing. They still just kill infantry.
They still just kill infantry.
Ultimately, yeah.
They don't really have any sort of weapons that are very good.
Yeah. Well, they're good at killing infantry, but I mean, most people aren't going to be running that much infantry.
Well, yeah, but hang on. Once per battle, you can move, but then you can't charge. An extra bonus move. Well done. Okay. That's a couple of points well spent. So yeah, put those in the bin. They look like flying dicks as well, which is not in their favour. Venatari, these used to be cool. They were the jetpack dudes. So how good? Oh no, they're not good either. 235
they're
points.
The jump winged ones, right? Yeah.
Yep. The little pistols are pointless now.
Yeah.
The Lance used to be the worst option, but it's now the best one. So pity for you if that's what you model them with, because you can't really magnetize them very easily. Yeah, they're just they've only got 10-inch move as well. They've lost a big chunk of move.
These guys are terrible.
Yeah.
Isn't bad, but you're right for the points cost.
Yeah. I just don't know what the for.
I think that they're charging Custodes a crazy amount because they all have that strong infantry killing, but yeah, I would never field these at 235 points.
Yeah.
The good toughness counts for nothing when you're being shot by strength 14 guns.
Well, exactly. I don't think there's that much difference between toughness 5 and 6. Well, do you know what? Inceptors have toughness 6 now, don't they? And they're only 115 points for 3, and they have better guns because...
Yeah.
They definitely do.
Yeah.
They get more shots as well.
Yeah. There's just not really any reason to bring these guys.
Do these guys? They're not armed with 2 kinetic destroyers, right?
No,
it's not
get 1 pistol, 1 a buckler.
Yeah,
Rapid
that's right.
Ingress for free is good because they'll get to come down and then charge next turn, but equally so, they're still discharging infantry.
Yeah,
no, just can't figure out what you're using.
You can't. You use them to line a shelf in a cabinet and look cool.
They're great models.
They are pretty. They're very pretty.
The Palace Gravitank. I used to love the Palace Gravitank because it was the only sort of cheap, fast unit we had, and it had this really cool gun that could do a lot of damage to vehicles.
Yep.
Well, they took that gun with the dual profile for the anti-vehicle and had the special roll against re-rolling against vehicles, this sort of stuff for damage, for wounding. And then they said what this anti-tank skimmer needs is to lose its anti-tank profiles
and be damage 1 dev wounds.
And be a damage 1 dev wounds, strength 5. It's like a shit heavy bolter to get more shots.
Yeah, so it does. Every time you shoot it, you do 2 mortal wounds, and then they save the rest. Brilliant. So 120 points to do 2 mortal wounds a turn. Perfect.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all. That's what it does, I guess.
Yeah,
and it's significantly slower than it used to be as well, of course.
All right.
Yeah. What's the point? The Taliban.
This used to be like the bane of the game, didn't it?
Yeah, it used to be the toughest. It's in fluff. It's the toughest Dreadnought. It was designed to punch out knights. It was designed to be as tough so it could go hand to hand and fight knights in case Mars ever rebelled. So it was developed by the Emperor himself. Yep. So what the Emperor said was, what we need is a Dreadnought that's not quite as good as the Space Marine one, but costs more points.
I thought you were going to be serious then. Like I was ready for like a serious lower thing from you, and then it's just that.
Well, it used to be. You used to give it 2 a day Saestus fists, run it cheap, and it would be an absolute behemoth on the table that you couldn't wound.
I lost tournaments to people running double Telemon. It was like the bane of my life as Blood Angels.
Absolutely brutal because they could. Their weakness was they didn't get many attacks.
Yeah.
Well, they still don't have many attacks, and you can't just bring 2 Satyrs to get extra attacks.
No.
It's like, we've got strength 12 weapon, yeah, but it's only AP 2 and damage 3.
I thought that the Telemon was going to be the answer. I was like, oh, they don't have any anti-armor. It's going to be the Telemon. And then I looked at the Telemon and it's like...
It wasn't the one that caught my eye.
Oh, yeah, but...
I looked at it thinking it would be the answer, but you're right, it's really not.
We've got that really good gun that's brilliant for killing tanks. Oh, no, they've taken away the anti-tank profiles and given it only an anti-infantry one.
Yay.
Or
made it anti-tank, or as much anti-tank as any infantry gun is, which is, say, strength 9. Yeah.
So...
And then even then, -1 AP. Yeah.
And you only got 4 shots as well.
That's
not
a real
like
shame.
6 million shots. Or like devastating wounds or something.
I was going to say, I don't know what's worse at this point. Getting told I can't use any of my armor because they're deprecating all the Forge World models, or having all my Forge World models have this happen to them where you can't use them anyway.
My collection overnight went from Powerful Army, used to be my go-to tournament army, to shelf collecting dust.
Okay.
Which is sad. But I do think there's still a good tournament army in here. You just got to play against the right opponents. But
well, there is. It's been kind of proven, hasn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. You just can't play like you used to. And sorry, Forge World stuff, that's all crap now.
Yeah.
Except for this guy.
This was the one I spotted. The only downside is it's 107 quid on Forge World website.
Yeah, it's overcosted in money and in points.
But
10-inch move, okay, it's slower than it used to be, but it's still relatively quick.
Yeah.
It's now just as quick as a normal tank, it being a flying tank.
I mean, the Arachnus Blaze Cannon is the only reason to be looking at this.
Yeah. It's your only proper source of solid anti-tank shooting. It's still only strength 12, I know.
But it's twin link, so it's re-rolling wounds on top
twin
of that.
Link's the re-rolling wound. You've got 4 shots, D6 plus 2 damage, AP minus 3.
2. Yeah.
So hold on, if you have the heavy blaze cannon, what other weapons do you actually have on this?
The twin Ladstrom bolt cannon.
Bolt cannon. Okay, so
which is like different heavy bolts, arguably a bit shitter.
I'm playing Vindicators at the moment, which are 205 points. They're also toughness 11. They're also a 2-up save. They only have 11 wounds and OC 3. So this is actually... I don't think this is overcosted at 215 because the 4 shots hitting on 2s D6 plus 2. It's only strength 12 compared to strength 14 on the Vindicator, but it's a bit more reliable because better ballistic skill and
it's the Custodes answer to a Lancer, really, when you get right down to it.
Yeah, it's not quite as good against Knights.
No.
Because I know you got reroll wounds, but you're still only wounding on 5s.
Uh-huh.
Against sort of strength, toughness 12, 13 stuff. But against normal armies that don't have...
Toughness 13 is ridiculously rare, though.
Exactly. So it's pretty good. And I think at the moment...
Force rerolls, I take. Yeah, sorry.
At the moment, I think it's probably almost mandatory in most sort of properly competitive lists.
I was going to say, it does have lethal hits when you shoot against monsters or vehicles as well with that blaze
which will give you an extra one auto wounding hit, really, realistically. Which is
I think this is actually reasonably competitive, actually. If you potentially you could run 2 in a list, I guess.
If you're playing at the moment, I think you have to run almost 2 of them in a 2,000 point list because there's so many tanks running around.
This would have been in my starter list, but for one single factor, which I'll get
£107.
them. Yeah, mainly. Yeah.
Is it risky to buy Forge World now, though? Do you guys think it's like if you were going to pay £107, is that risky to you?
I don't feel it's risky for me for Custodes.
No, okay.
Because they made a big deal of the fact that Custodes have such a limited army.
Yeah.
That's why they kept all their Forge World options. Now, what I was really hoping when they said that was that they were just going to roll them into the normal codex.
Okay.
Maybe they will. Who knows?
Because you saw how few units they actually have.
They're not on the roadmap, are they?
Mm-hmm.
No, so they're at least a year out.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, these I think are pretty good.
Yeah.
And at the moment, with the current kind of vehicle meta we're in, I think they're almost mandatory.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
John?
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think I would run 2 of them if I was going to run Custodes.
Yeah.
The problem is what else you could run with them because you don't have any other good options to run with them.
You've got a choice of these or Land Raiders.
Basically, which is fair.
And these are
Twice the money price of a Land Raider.
they are, but they're less points as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, rolling on then. We've got the Cronus Grav Carrier. It's 200 points. It's defensively, it's a Land Raider.
Mm-hmm.
But because they've decided that the anti-tank profiles on the blaze cannons were OP, they got rid of it and just gave you an anti-infantry one. Don't bring it. Bring a Land Raider. It's 60 points more, but it's a lot more than 60 points better.
Better, yep. Agreed.
The Orion Assault Dropship. It's a flying thing. It's got a heavy blaze cannon, so it's the same gun as on those little tanks we were looking at.
Yep.
It doesn't have the special rule for lethal hits.
Yeah, and it's also got a shorter range on that same gun.
And it's also got shorter range, but 36 inches.
And less damage. Well, okay. All right.
36 possible only. It's just overcost is the main problem with it, to be honest, because I do quite like the fact it's an assault dropship.
Yeah.
Great
in principle.
Great in principle, but 690 points. There's no reason for the 690 points.
Not at
all. Speaking of overcosted, the Ares gunship is 580 points. It's less points than the Orion. Doesn't have a transport capacity, but does have a pretty good gun. It's our only big boy gun.
Yes. When you absolutely positively want to kill what you shoot at, this is the thing you bring for 600 points.
Risky to bring it, I feel like, but yeah. I mean, you can't argue with the strength 18.
Yeah. It's only toughness 12 with the 22 wounds.
Toughness 12 with 22 is good, with 2 up, 5 up.
Yeah,
but
it is
maybe not for 600 points.
But not for OC0 as well is a little bit worrying.
Yeah, well, it's a flyer, isn't it? Yeah.
And then it's got the other problems of flyers.
Does it carry both of those ranged weapons in the loadout, or does it only have one of them?
Yeah, it's got both.
Okay, that's
so better. The blaze cannons are in the nose.
Yep.
And the heavy blaze cannons, the sort of like the side guns, and the magna blaze cannons, they're like the big central spine gun.
Okay.
I think I would take 3 of those 215 point tanks over this, though.
I would too.
So it's got 2 of the heavy blaze cannons and 1 of the magna blaze cannons.
Yeah, because if you took 3 of those smaller tanks, so
it does. I'm looking at the thing here.
You'd get 12 shots with lethal hits, which I think is better than.
So this is 11 shots.
Oh right, okay, yeah, because it's got 2.
And 3 of those at strength 18, more damage. It's just the problem is it's on one platform.
It's on one platform
that flies.
Because it's a flyer, you're going to be able to shoot it regardless. Yeah. If you bring any anti-armor firepower, this will be the first thing you target.
Absolutely. And if you're bringing this, it's going to be your only anti-armor firepower you've got in your army. So once they blow it up, you're going to be potentially in big trouble.
Yeah, okay. I don't think you can field it.
No. And that's it. That's every unit they have.
I don't know. Would you put one of them and 3 other Cladiuses in a list?
No. No, I don't think I would. I think that's the same problem as big knights.
The better part of.
But the advantage knights have over you is that the big knights have OC10 and your flyer is OC0.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, cool.
I think you can run the Ares more than you can run the Orion.
Which is insane.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
That's not saying.
All right.
But yeah, what do we think, gentlemen?
I think it's poorly written.
I got a lot more of a grip on this following your read through than I did trying to put my list together and prep for this thing this evening. But
I'm going to get this out right away.
Uh-huh.
I don't think that these are bad in that if you're playing, they can be quite oppressive actually, depending on who they're using. But if I was going to a tournament tomorrow
and wanting to win,
and wanting to do well, I'd actually bring my Blood Angels over these.
Yeah, do you know what? I think it's actually not a problem with these guys' lists or their abilities or anything like that. It's more of a problem with the edition. It's like somebody who was writing this codex didn't get the memo that like we just want armor to be devastatingly powerful this edition, and that's where we've come out. Where like,
do you think GW didn't figure out how oppressive armor could become?
Yes, I think that they should have anything that was like toughness 7 before should have gone to toughness 8, in toughness 8 before, which is a lot of things, you know, like Bloodthirsters, Great Unclean Ones, Land Raiders. They should have gone to toughness 9, because if you remember how difficult it, like, and then not messed with any of the strength of stuff. Because last edition I played against Andrew had a Rogel Dorn, and it was like 26 wounds, toughness 9, and it was damn near impossible for me to kill it. And I also played against Colin's Great Unclean One that was toughness 9, and it was, again, damn near impossible, because, you know, most people running Melta. Melt doesn't do fuck all against toughness 9. And the problem is now we've just gone like 1 or 2 more pips. So stuff that should have probably been toughness 9 is actually toughness 11 or something. So even if you got like strength 10, you're still only wounding on 5s, and that's a huge problem. Like, it's a huge problem.
The way I figure it, you're absolutely right that it is a huge problem, but they're also not changing profiles of things. They're not just going to go back and errata them or anything like that. So the way I see this, the only way this changing is if GW release a mission pack that means that infantry score shit and vehicles don't. Because right now, vehicles can do basically anything that they want that you need to in order to win the games in secondaries and primaries and whatnot. So if they change it so that you need infantry to score points, and vehicles just kill stuff and be hard to kill, then that might balance things out a bit.
That would help for sure. I think if I'm going to a tournament tomorrow, I'm 100% running like my 8 tank Blood Angels list.
Yeah.
Because it just wins every fucking game, and people can't even kill any of the tanks. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd be running the same thing. And I know people are going to tell us how wrong we are in the comments. And if you're playing with your mates, these guys, I mean that, can feel really, really unfun to play against because all of your attacks are bouncing off them, and then you're charging in with your sanguinary guard, and they're just turning around and bitch slapping them across the thing, because they will win in melee especially against someone like a Marine army.
Mm-hmm.
But they go 3 wins and 2 losses at every tournament because they fight 3 armies that are infantry based that they just absolutely slaughter, and then they fight 2 armies that are armor based that they can't touch.
Yep.
And
or Eldar that just shoot them to bits and dodge.
Or
out the way.
Eldar that just shoot them to bits, or anybody that's got a lot of shooting, really. Which is why I've played a decent number of games with them.
Yeah.
I've put them on the shelf now. They're
Fair
not
enough.
coming out to play because in a friendly game with mates, unless they're building a super shooty or super tanky army, I'm going to stomp them, and they're not going to have any fun. Or they're going to stop me. And I think that's really sad because I love my golden shiny boys. I don't know why they lost all that movement. If they had the movement back, I could almost take the lack of anti-tank on the chin because we'd have the tools and the speed to be scoring objectives. And if you are playing them and you're like, no, I'm going to play Custodes, I want to win with Custodes, you have to build into that. If your opponent turns up with an armored army, you can't kill them. You have to win by scoring the objectives.
Mm-hmm.
Get on the objectives, sit on the objectives, don't die, is how you're going to win those games.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's the choice.
And if you're playing these guys, do the same, or shoot the shit out of them and laugh. Or bring John's 8 tank Blood Angels list and then make sure you blow up his grav tanks.
Okay.
Shoot the grav tank first. Anyway, so that being said, I don't want to sound too negative because, like I say, I love the fact that they are golden. I love the fact that they are shiny. And they really do hold a place dear in my heart. And because of that, we have made some getting started lists. So if you want to play with your mates, if you just like golden shiny boys, this is how we suggest that you might want to get started. And we're going to start with Blood Angels Commander. What have you done?
Take a Land
What is
Raiders.
this shit?
2 Land Raiders, each with 2 Alarisk Custodians inside it.
Did you put the 2 Land Raiders in the list and just build everything around that?
Well, I figured that I needed anti-tank because that's what the meta is at the moment. So 8 Las Cannons hitting on 2s seems like...
Yeah, it's absolutely a definite choice.
So, and my experience with the Toughness 12 vehicles, especially with the 2-up save, is you just drive them straight up the middle and you sort of like bully the board. So we already said their Terminators are slow, so there'll be 2 Terminators in each. Land Raider will have like the Sisters of Silence, the Prosecutors to hold some objectives probably in the backfield, and then I've just got a Terminator Captain because that lets me use the free stratagem. I'm probably going to use it to freely smokescreen.
No, you can't do that.
Not while he's inside the Land Raider, he can't.
Well, no,
The
it's not
second
attached. It's the unit.
Oh, it's the attached unit. Okay, then I'm not going to do that. The other thing that I thought, though, that Alaris can redeploy as well, though, right? Once per game?
Yep. So
I felt like if they came out of the Land Raider and then I needed to come back to my backfield to help my prosecutors, they could potentially do that as well. It's kind of like, this list, I don't know if it works for 1,000 points, but I think that if I was going to be building into 2,000 points, like, I don't see how you...
This would be your start.
Yeah. I mean, like, you're going to need... You need the strength 12 weaponry, like, you just need it.
I actually think that against a lot of armies, this would be incredibly oppressive at 1,000 points. Because at 1,000 points, people don't normally have the anti-tank firepower to deal with 2 toughness 12, 18 wound, 2 up save.
Yeah.
Land Raiders,
you can really skew 1,000-point lists with that sort of thing.
This is so skew that you're going to use your 8 las cannon shot, blow up any anti-tank they've got, and then just wander about with impunity.
Yep.
Yeah, and just have the 40-point prosecutor sitting on the 2 backfield objectives or the 2 objectives that
they're going to last 10 seconds because the rest of your opponent's army is going to go, I can't do shit to those Land Raiders, but those prosecutors are going to die.
At which point you can hold a maximum of 4 objectives, 2 Land Raiders, 2 units of Terminators. Yeah.
Well,
I genuinely think it's probably quite powerful because it's so skew.
Yeah.
I just didn't see, when I was going through it, I was just like, wow, they've got nothing that kills tanks. So at the moment, if they came up against me, they'd just lose because I'm in 1,000 points, I'm probably going to bring like 2 Vindicators and a Predator,
Yeah.
So I was like, they just have nothing that can kill that, then the game's over straight away. So the only solution I really came up with was a couple of Land Raiders. And hey, Land Raiders are cool. And you can charge out Land Raiders as well, so you've got that going for you too.
Yep.
And like I say, Land Raiders are cool.
Has anybody done like golden painted Proteus pattern Custodes Land Raiders?
I haven't. I'm sure someone has. The reason I don't actually have any Custodes Land Raiders.
Okay.
And the reason I don't is that I know it sounds weird, but the exhaust ports on a Land Raider are very Space Marine.
Okay.
They're kind of that big sort of pointy truck smokestack sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
Whereas the exhaust ports on the custodian vehicles are all kind of like more advanced, much more technological.
Could you cut them off, convert them, and print
yes,
some?
Probably could. And it's the same with the standard Contemptor Dreadnought. I don't own a custodian standard Contemptor Dreadnought because the custodian ones with their much more efficient power packs and that, and then the Space Marine one looks a bit weird next to them.
Fair.
I've always meant to buy another Galatus and swap off the arms for the standard Contemptor arms to make it fit, but it's a lot of money just to do that. Just to do that. Okay. Which is why I haven't. But they look good in gold. Everything looks good in gold.
Okay.
So very nice. I think that'd be terrifying at 1,000 points to face 2 Land Raiders. Chief Librarian, what have you gone with?
So mine was based around the premise of buying a combat patrol, making the basis of an army out of that, and then filling it with whatever I felt best on top of that in terms of cost and what I thought might do good in metagames from there. So the Shield Captain on Jet Bike and the 2 Virtus Bikers at the bottom were in there because the bikers are in the combat patrol. The Custodian Guard are in there because they're in the combat patrol. The Prosecutors are in there because they're in the combat patrol, and they're dirt cheap. And the Contemptor Dreads are in there because they're strength 12 melee. The Melters might help a bit, and I didn't notice that they had 6-inch movement. Ultimately,
I mean, at least you're honest, right?
Yeah,
you could reserve the Dreadnoughts, to be fair, just go for those 9-inch Hail Mary charges with the strength 12.
Yeah,
and they got Lance as well, don't they?
They're relatively tough. They can get back up after they're dead, so you can just walk them forwards. They get killed, they get back up, then they charge something, they put some damage on it with strength 12 melee. They're
not awful.
They're just not the most optimal choices that are in the list, having just gone through stuff.
I will say though, I haven't played with all of them, but I've played a decent number of the combat patrol games at the moment. And I think the Custodes combat patrol might be the best one.
I'm not so sure about that because there are combat patrols that come with vehicles in them as well. And I think that
I can't think of any that have got very good vehicles, though.
Doesn't really matter. Even a toughness 9 impulsor in a combat patrol is overpowering against most of the combat patrols for the same reason that a Land Raider is in John's list. There's nothing in most combat patrols that can touch it.
There aren't, but it doesn't do anything either. And that big unit of 5 Custodian Guard just sitting on an objective is just not going to get shifted. If for the same reason nobody's going to shift a toughness 9 impulsor, nobody's going to shift 5 Custodian Guard with Presidium shields.
True.
Yeah, fair point.
Good point.
So I genuinely think, although it's not got much killing power, it's incredibly.
You got the prosecutors in the list because they're cheap, and you've got to have something to sit on your backfield objectives and just be chaff.
Yeah, that's slightly wrong. That should be 2 times 4, 80 points.
It's 2 times 4 at 40 points each is 80 points total. The Custodian Guard are in there because they're your basic troops and they're pretty solid and good. The bikes are in there just to move fast, claim stuff, and shoot some things. The captain goes along with them because it's the most speedy thing that is likely to get into melee out of the entire list. And the Contemptors walk forward and shoot stuff and punch stuff.
Yeah, I think it's pretty solid, actually.
Yeah. So that's 170 Great British pounds, or roughly 140, 150 quid from our affiliate Element Games.
Yeah, I think it worked out at £145.
Yep.
Element Games.
And I then worked out how much it was in US dollars for our American audiences who may wish to look at this. And it was like 260 USD or something like that, which is really weird when you think 170 quid versus that 260 US dollars it was like 30% more expensive in currency exchange rates for the exact same shit. So I thought that was a bit crap. So I feel for your
colonial cousins get absolutely screwed.
Not quite as bad as the Australians.
Not as bad as the Australians, who really.
But pretty badly, yeah.
And one thing people should be able to take away from this is it's a relatively cheap army to collect, which is one of the reasons
you look at the amount of models in there, it'll be quick. It'll be quick to paint, get on the table, prepare, glue, get playing with it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, 15, 18 models?
Yeah.
You paint 18 models.
Should hope so.
Rattle cannon with gold, give them a wash, pick out some red bits, off you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that was mine.
And then lastly is mine. Now, mine's the cheapest, and I think probably the weirdest, looking at the other two. Now, I've brought Trajan, because I think he's still 145 points. And he's got a unit of 9 Custodian Guards to play with. With a Vexilla in there, which gives them all OC3 and boosts him up. Then I've got a Blade Champion with a little unit of Custodian Guard.
Yep.
Which are then for a little bit quicker.
This is 4 units on the board, isn't it?
Yeah. And then I've got 2 little Alaris, which his job is...
Three
units on the board. And then 2 little Alaris, who are just really objective monkeys. Right, let me explain this list, because I know it sounds a little bit weird.
Three units on the board is a little bit shin scratchy, I've got to confess.
Now, it's a 1,000-point game, right?
Yep.
I'm going to go forward in turn 1.
Yep.
And I'm going to park my big unit of Custodian Guard over the middle of the board.
Right.
And then I'm going to say, come on, have a go if you think you're old enough.
Okay.
Because there's not much in the game that's going to stab them.
Yep.
There's not much in the game when every single model in that thing has got a 4-up invuln and 3 wounds that's going to shoot them very efficiently.
I mean, you just roll hot on some 4-ups and you're good for a while.
And then the other little unit is still pretty tough and moves quite quick to take another objective and can be a nasty little countercharge threat. And the Alaris are surprisingly tough for just a 2-man unit that can teleport.
Okay.
And that's really the point. That's all you do. That's all I'm going to do is I'm going to, in turn 1, I'm going to take as many objectives as I can. If I'm lucky, I can screen across a couple.
Yep.
And then I'm going to sit on the objectives and I'm going to wait for you to try and charge me. And if I'm fighting someone that's got 1 million tanks, it'll be, can they shoot all my guys before I've racked up too many points to win? And if I'm fighting someone with a melee army, I'm just going to let them come and have a go.
Fair enough.
Because they can't take any objectives, and I'm going to win because I've scored all the points.
Is that your Trajan model in the corner?
It is. I thought it'd be a laugh to put my own model in there.
Awesome. Yeah, should do.
And this is the way that I've found best to play Custodians at the moment. Like John says, they've got no real anti-tank. You can lean into Land Raiders, but Land Raiders are all right, but they're 260 points each. And the best way I've found to bring them at the moment, even at 2,000 points, is to bring as many Custodian Guard as you possibly can, park them on all of the objectives on the table, and then run away with the points.
You think it's better to bring big blobs rather than multiple little squads?
I haven't made my mind up on that.
Okay.
It depends who you're facing. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't, because they're so tough that blast doesn't really have an effect. Because most weapons with blast
aren't that crazy,
aren't that crazy for AP, and even if they are, anything over AP2 is wasted anyway. So let's take John's 1,000-point list with the Land Raiders, where you've got 8 shots from those 4 Land Raiders.
Yeah, 4 of them saved on the invuns by the odds.
4 of them saved straight up just off the invuns. You're still only wounding on on 2s and 3s, depending on what they are, but you've also got to hit and things. And then you might not roll enough wounds to kill it because there's 3 wounds each. And that's going to be annoying. Shit, I've left him on 1 wound. Now my next lad's cannon's only going to finish off that 1 wound. You've only got so many turns in the game
to chew through them. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad idea at all. I don't think it's a bad list.
It's not a fun list to play against or with.
But it's definitely a fluffy, flavourful list.
But it works. And remember, that means you're sitting on objectives, and Custodian Guards get to re-roll all their wounds when they're on objectives. So if you charge them, you're really going to stab you. But even with the shooting, there's enough shooting to kill any infantry that's floating around.
Oh, yeah.
Fairly efficiently.
Yeah. Cool.
Right. Nice.
Like I say, it's a bit dull, but I think at the moment, this is the best way to play. Bring as many Custodian Guard as you can. Maybe chuck in a couple of Caladius Grav tanks if you're playing at 2,000 points.
And in summary on how to beat Custodes, shoot them. And have high toughness stuff.
Yeah. And have high toughness stuff that they can't hurt. And don't let them get on the objectives, because if they get on the objectives, they become much more powerful, and you're really going to have a time trying to shift them.
Yeah, and a lot of OC in the objectives as well.
So a lot of OC.
Maybe throw a roadblock unit in the way if you can afford to do that somehow.
Yeah, if you've got little cheap units that you can stick on all the objectives quickly, so that they can't just get there. If they get a unit of 10 Custodian Guard.
Does that just give the Custodians something to charge, though?
Potentially.
I just got to weigh up the benefits.
You got to weigh up the benefits, because if they get a unit of 10 Custodian Guard on the objective, you're probably not going to take it that game.
Fair enough. Cool.
Yeah, there we go. So it's an interesting army to play with at the moment. Actually, I'm lying. It's an incredibly boring army to play with at the moment. But it's interesting from where they've gone from last edition, and then comparing to some of the other stuff that we've got flying around at the moment.
It's also worth noting that by the time this video goes live, either that week or the week after, we're due a bunch of points drops anyway with the scheduled changes, so that could mix things up a little. But
how would you change it to make them sort of like a bit more balanced and viable at the moment?
Oh, I've got no idea, mate. Make it so that you can bring one model and make it so that individual weapons can be bought and paid for and all this sort of stuff, rather than fucking power level light bullshit they've given us.
Well,
see, I reckon the Custodian Guard are undercosted. But they're also the only thing that's propping up this army at the moment.
All right, what would happen if, say, bikes dropped in cost by, like, I don't know, a quarter?
They'd have to drop by a good 30 points. If you drop them by 30 points, I think we start to see them again.
And they're at what, 120?
No, they're at 90 points each at the moment.
Okay, so you want them down by a third.
If they're down to about 60 points, I think we'll see them, because they're one of your only sources of mobility in the army, and we know that mobility can win games. We'll start to see them. I think if Custodian Guard went up to 50 points, that we might see more Wardens. It's a bit more of a choice between the two.
I think they've made their melee against infantry too good and left them with no anti-tank options, honestly.
I think they have as well. But they're not changing data sheets, so there's not a lot they can do about that.
That can't be changing the points change. You're absolutely right.
So bringing down the bikes and stuff like that, bring down the bloody Dreadnoughts. Now they're incredibly expensive.
Yeah, due to them being so slow. Yeah.
Due to them being so slow. And then maybe give them a little bit of a hike to their infantry. Maybe put the guard up to 50 and 55 for the wardens. Maybe could be warranted.
Well, I guess we'll see.
I think we'll see.
All
but
right.
I'd have them the same, actually, both at 50.
Appreciate. Cheers, Tony.
There we go. So that's that. Yeah. Custodians at the moment. Funny place they're in. So you've seen our video and you've seen what we think. Like I said at the beginning, not much has really changed. The Custodes are still, in my opinion, still very much a 60% win rate army. They're going to win 3 out of 5 games that they play. Now, most of that's going to be because 3 out of those 5 games are going to be into opponents that really don't stand a lot of chance. Any kind of melee infantry armies especially are really going to struggle into Custodes. On the flip side, the next 2 games where they play against something they can't do much about, for example, knights or a heavily armoured army, they're going to lose. And there's not much more they can do about that either. It's not the best balance in the world. Now, being a little bit more specific on some of the changes, we mentioned in the video how we feel that Custodian Guard are undercosted. They've gone up a little bit in points. They're probably about right at 50 points. Other changes, the bikes have dropped down. They're now 80 points each. They're still massively overcosted. I still don't think we're going to see them. They don't bring anything to the army apart from a little bit of speed. Just not worth the points at the moment. Other points changes were less expected. The Achilles Dreadnought, we said it was, well, shit. And they put the points up. It's not helped it. My favourite and craziest one is the Bike Captain is now 180 points. So I know you were all rushing out to bring bikes and bike captains before. Well, at 180 points, I bet you are now. Weird. Trajan's gone up to 160 points now. That's probably about right. You're still going to take him. He's still probably our best HQ choice. The Bay Champion dropped down by a little touch. I think he's good for the points, but there is an argument for the other choices instead. The Sisters of Silence, a little bit of a points drop on some of the special ones. They're still, you're not going to take him. You're going to take the cheapest ones you can. So overall, not really many changes there. The biggest impact, apart from the stratagem change, so the free stratagem change from the balanced data slate, meaning you can't reliably fight first, or use insane bravery more than once per game. That's really going to hurt into armies that cause a lot of battle shock tests. The other really impactful change is in the unit sizes. Now, in my army list that you've just seen, I ran a unit of 9 Custodian Guard and a smaller unit. You can't do that anymore. You're capped at a unit of 4 or 5. I still think they're the best thing in the Codex, and I still maintain that the best way to play Custodians at the moment is to lean as heavily as you can on as many Custodian Guard as you can bring. At 50 points, they're slightly more expensive, but they're still a bargain for what you get. The other stuff really doesn't stand a chance. Looking at the new points costs, a unit of Sagittarium, for example, they've got a little bit more shooty. Shooty's something you need, but 5 of them is still 225 points. I don't think you're going to take them for that. The Adrosite and Pyrothite Custodian Guard, the ones with the fancy spears, they're now at 300 points for a unit of 5. You're not going to do it. Why would you take 5 of those 300 points? They're awful. Don't do it. Land Raiders dropped a little bit though, which is nice. So overall, not a huge amount has changed for Custodes in the way that they play. There are changes to your lists. You're going to have to tweak them, and it's going to be a little bit harder now with the higher points costs of some of the key units. But it's still not going to affect things too much. Now, I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode, and thanks for bearing with us with this very delayed episode. I'll refer you back to our past selves and catch you on the next one. Cheers. Gory pile.
Well, hey, gory pile. Not a pile of shame. We're still on gory now, are we? Okay.
I told you I reused the old custodian.
Yep, that's fair. That's fair.
Now, we're going to start off with John. John, what have you done?
Very little. But I have put 3 colours onto these Desolation Marines. I'm not sure I'm even fielding them. I've just put 3 colours onto them because
If you take an infantry, they're really, really good. But yeah.
I mean, one guy did win a tournament by just teleporting these guys around with a library and Dreadnought. So I mean, there is. I think he just oath of moment his target every turn and just teleported them around. So I mean, I have 10 of them. So why should I not just finish them? I guess
I built my 10. Thank you very much for the bits you sent me. Very, very
you're more than
appreciated.
welcome.
They've got the not quite so derpy look that the official Desolated Marines have, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, mine look quite derpy, but it's fine. You can see we've got a beak helmet in there.
Strike Force Agamatus box set.
Yeah,
nice.
Not done anything with.
Fair enough.
I bought 5. I bought 5 more on a sprue, so I've got 15 of these guys. But yeah, I'm not feeling any of them right now. Just feeling tanks. So.
Fair enough.
Unique. Okay.
So why are you working on them then?
But it's because I'm a little bit scared that more firstborn stuff's going to go legends, and who knows? I think it's good to have options. So I thought I'd get them 3 colored ready.
I suspect at this point, from the time of filming, we'll know within like 3 weeks, I reckon. From the time it's been released, we'll know within 2 weeks if we don't know already what the contents of the new Space Marine Codex is going to be, because the day it goes up for pre-order is the day all the preview copies will release all of their reviews. We'll be able to go page through page. Yeah.
I'll say at the moment I'm enjoying playing Space Marines more than I'm enjoying my Custodians. Although I've won more with the Custodians, weirdly. Mostly because I've parked Custodian Guard on objectives, and that's it, really.
Fair enough.
Okay, let's move on then. Mark, keep you busy.
This is an army I am prepping for the good Mr. James Gibbs tournament that he's running.
Don't look at it then. Nobody should see.
No, it's fine. This is by the time this video goes out, we're past list submission date, which is why I'm very carefully about putting this in here. At the moment, I've been teasing Vertigo that I might be bringing 5 Armigen Knights to this thing, because the restrictions of this game they're an interesting set of restrictions. We're running 5 games. They're all like an hour and a half each. It's a 700-point tournament. No unit may cost more than 225 points. There's no aircraft. No models of more than 14 wounds. No epic heroes. And you must bring at least 1 battle line unit. So technically, you can bring 4 Armigers and an Inquisitor. And that legally fills a Knight's army list. They're allowing people to bring 5 Armigers and make one of them your Warlord, even though it's not a character. So, yeah. I mean, 5 Armigers in that kind of a tournament are going to be oppressive.
I think that's just going to win.
By default. Yeah.
By default. I mean, you'll be able to tell us. I really wanted to go to James's tournament. He always has really fun restrictions on the tournaments. So what have you got here? So tell us what you're running.
So the battle line are the intercessors, so that I can get an objective, I can sticky it, and then I can walk off and do whatever I want with them throughout the game. The chaplain is in there to be their warlord, largely so that he can make the 2 Death Company dreads obsec and able to fall back if they want to later on. The 2 Death Company dreads are there to walk forwards, scare the crap out of things because they're movement 8, muller things in melee, and then the flamer things if they want to. I've had the tournament official ruling that we're going to be saying that you can melee multiple times in the same fight phase using their special rules. So that's going to be quite fun, I hope. And the Balpred's in there because it is a objective Overwatch threat. It's fun. And I thought, why not? It gives it a bit more Blood Angel-y kind of flavour to it. I've been busy building the Death Company Dread on the right, which is why it's not in the big pick with the others. I've been magnetizing the Magna Grapples on them so that next time that they become shit and smoke launchers become good, I can just swap them out. And putting a hunter killer missile with magnets on the back of that Balpred there. So Yeah, I'll be getting this ready over the next couple of weeks, which I might be a bit worried about if I didn't have 4 days off, 2 days next week and 2 days a week after.
Nice. Right, and then lastly, here's my shame. That's my Sanguinor that I was painting on John's aborted stream the other day. That's as far as I got in the stream.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just me buggering about trying to do a bit of non-metallic because I haven't done enough of that to practice the skill.
Okay. What's an Enforcer gang?
That's my Necromunda gang.
Okay.
So I've not had a lot of free time recently, but I wanted to play some Necromunda, and I don't like playing with completely unpainted models, so I did a bit of a John and got a few colours on my Enforcers so that I could play some Necromunda.
Cool.
They've been spectacularly useless.
Those are the ones that were like not quite Arbites, but they're the police in the Necromunda setting.
So in 2017,
Palatine
Necromunda, they
Enforcers.
decided that rather than having the Arbites, which was really just the Arbitrator's tool rather than a proper gang,
Yeah.
they're going to introduce the Enforcers, which are a proper gang, but they're much lower level than like Arbites, things like that.
Yeah.
They've got pretty good equipment, but they've got very average stats. And if you're me and you've got it, because they're like ballistic skill, weapon skill 4 up.
Mm-hmm.
And I've spectacularly failed to ever hit anything with a shooting attack.
Do they have a cyber doggy in their gang as well?
They do have a cyber doggy in their gang. I haven't got a cyber doggy in my gang, but they do have one, and I will be getting one later.
You're doing it wrong. Yeah, okay. You got to get your cyber doggy.
Well, he's war gear, and he's quite an expensive piece of war gear as well. So you sort of get him a bit later on when you're access trading posts and stuff like that.
Was he in the box with those guys?
No, he wasn't.
No, because I was going to say I bought those guys to proxy as Space Marine Scouts.
Yeah. They've got 2 boxes. They've got one which are the big guys, the beefy guys with the shields.
Yeah, with the shields.
And then they've got the skinnier guys with the other weapon options. And then the doggy comes in a couple of places, but mostly with a Forge World special character.
Okay.
Did you guys ever watch The Running Man with Schwarzenegger?
Yeah, I love that film.
Watch them.
The thinner guys, their armor reminded me of like the ice hockey players from The Running Man. Don't know, it was like a long time since, and I just thought, fuck it, I'm just going to paint that armor red. And I mean, they've got like shotguns or bolters, so they will be my scouts, because I fucking hate the old scout models. Funny thought that the new scout models came out today, didn't they? But
yeah, and they look quite nice actually.
They do look really good as scouts go. Yeah.
And then other than that, I've started painting my Leviathan set. But
cool.
I haven't got that much farther than everybody's red and some of the stuff blacked out.
Can I say, the Ballistus Dreadnought's been surprising me, actually. It's growing on me.
I said when it came out that I quite liked it, and you poo-pooed me.
Yeah, well, I've played it like 4 or 5 games now, and I just like the fact that rerolls to hit in the early game from it are really useful, because you obviously you oath one target, so you don't shoot your oath target with the Ballistus, but it means when you shoot something else, you're just baking in a little bit more reliability on those las cannons and those crack missiles. I kind of like it.
I think they're pretty solid for 170 points.
Yeah, I didn't like it in favour of their options because it's a strength 12 gun and a strength 10 gun, and I wanted my anti-armor firepower to be strength 13 or higher. But that was all. That was the only reason.
Yeah.
I don't think they're brilliant, but I think they're not bad.
Yeah. They also benefit from the fact there's shitloads of them on eBay at the moment. They're dirt cheap money-wise.
They are dirt cheap money-wise. You can see how far I've got with mine. He's red.
It's about the similar with mine.
Yeah, if you want to pick them up, they're like 20, 25 quid on eBay at the moment.
Yeah, very reasonable. But yeah, so that's as far as I've got. I've readied some stuff. I've sort of painted my Enforcers, but I can't show them because they're where I play games, and I forgot to take a picture before I took them over there.
Could you not get someone to take a picture of them and send you the picture over or something?
I could have if I'd remembered before 6 o'clock this evening. But I didn't.
Okay.
So yeah, there's just the guy.
You have been the most hobby prolific of us for almost the entire period we've been doing this channel. So I guess
not so much at the moment.
Not last few weeks, but it's totally understandable.
But yeah, so that, and then there's the guy that I did on John's aborted stream where he stitched me up.
I hope you enjoyed your holiday, John, because Tony was having a nightmare that night.
I did, yes. It happens. It's not a problem.
We'll fix it for next time. It'll be fine. Pain is the best teacher.
Yeah,
It is
something like
indeed.
that. And I realised later on that trying to do non-metallics in real time on stream, there's like 4 colours in that whole model, is the dullest thing to watch. Just watching me go backwards and forwards, trying to make things and get the right amount of contrast and the placements for the lights right for about 3 hours must have been the dullest video, I think, or dullest stream I've ever done, with the 4 people in the chat that weren't saying anything.
Well, I guess you learn.
You do.
I mean, it's why I like painting like base colors on stream rather than like edge highlighting Death Company or something, because you just can't concentrate.
You can't concentrate.
You can do it and you can keep talking. Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, hopefully I will at some point finish him, but yeah, that's as far as I got.
Okay.
You'll get there.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think that is
much appreciated. Thank you.
That is
very
our
much.
whole thing. So
for our next episode, we are likely to be talking about the points changes and or the contents of Codex Space Marines, depending on when that's out and when we do the next video. So I guess we'll see you guys for that. It may be a live stream. There's a good chance we're going to do a live stream for the points one, I'd thought. It's been a while since we've done a live stream, so we could do that.
Yeah, so that's coming up. We've got plenty more indexes to look at.
Yep.
And we've still got our Patreon request.
We've got some new codexes to look at as well.
Yeah, our Patreon request is review the Babylon 5 movies, which we've got to do because that's been asked of us.
Can I just tell you, I've never watched Babylon 5.
Well, that's going to be a shit video for you then, isn't it?
You're
going to have to watch them between now and then. Yeah.
I was going to say, I've never seen any of it.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one. Anyway, so thank you very much for watching. I hope we didn't come across as too down this episode. They're still a cool army.
Yeah.
They just
got a lot of character.
There's the number. It's one of those things. The numbers just don't show the whole story, because you look at it and you look at the MetaWatch article. It's like 60%, and that's absolutely correct. They are 100% a 60% army. They win 3 out of every 5 games they play.
And also, not every player is a highly competitive win all the tournaments game player. So, yeah.
So have a bit of fun with them. Enjoy painting gold. Enjoy the fact that it's a quick army to paint and build, and relatively, if you're going to Workshop products, cheap. And thank you very much for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.
Indeed. Ciao, ciao.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye-bye.